Welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers.
Experience is not about the publisher, it is about us, the authors.
Hello. So welcome to the Festival of Storytellers. And we're featuring my book today, which is Beautiful. And the author of Beautiful, A Guide to Today's Women. So it is a book that tells you what menopause is and how to experience it in a healthy way that brings body and soul together. Because menopause, when you do experience menopause, you're going to feel like a different person. And I didn't make this up. There's lots of studies that actually support that conclusion. So you can ask questions. And today I'm going to be talking about relationships between spouses and during menopause and domestic violence. There's a lot of research that's been done. A lot of it has been done in Britain, and I have brought some of it to you today that shows that there is a direct relationship between menopause and domestic violence. And you're going to ask me why, but some of those answers are in the book. So I'm not going to tell you that, but I'm going to tell you some about the statistics and some of the other findings and what women have been saying verbatim during the research process as to why there is they experience domestic violence. So reason you're probably saying, how did she get to this topic? Well, you know, I was on Facebook and I was reading about Pierre Trudeau's wife, Margaret. Not Pierre Trudeau, sorry, Sophie Gregor. That goes to tell you how far back I go. It's not, is our PM's Trudeau's wife. She was crying because, you know, as you well know, everybody knows that they're going through a divorce now. And I said to myself, and some people were mocking her because she was crying, and she was talking about how divorce makes her feel helpless and hopeless. And she was very, very sad. And people were mocking her online. And I thought, this is so sad, and and just so typical of the world and of our generation. Because why would people mock somebody who in there suffering? So, but anyways, I decided to. I thought, is she menopausal? She must be menopausal. She has 3 children and whatever. So I decided to look up her age and found that she is 48 years old. So according to the studies, and I thought this is really something. According to the studies, she would fall within the perimenopausal to menopausal period. Now, if she's 48, it is highly likely that she could be menopausal, but because she's white, she may have a few more years left. Whereas, I can just tell you that I menopaused completely at 47. So that doesn't mean you can have a menopause at 35. There are women who have stopped their period completely at 35. So it's not unheard of. So the prime minister is Justin, not Pierre. I was from the Pierre period. I like Pierre. He's a nice guy. But Justin is just as nice, except now he's getting a divorce. He's divorcing his wife and he has 3 children, I believe. And they just got married in 2005, which sounds like just the other day. And they're getting divorced already. But the menopause and domestic violence are linked. And you wonder why they are linked. Like I said, some of the causes are in my book, but these people, the Against Violence and Abuse, they're situated in England. They cited these statistics. They did a project which it's called Stuck in the Middle with You. And they did a project in 2021 where they did some research on women who were going through menopause and who had experienced domestic violence. And what they found was that women's experiences in menopause suggest that there is a two-way relationship between domestic violence and menopause. Women view menopause as a pivotal point in their lives to make changes if before they went into menopause, they were having spousal issues, or issues of domestic violence. So that's what they found. They also, these women, this focus groups, identify a lack of professional support. And we're talking about that women don't really know about menopause, what to expect. But if the women don't know what to expect, how can we expect the men to know what to expect? It just doesn't, it just doesn't line up. But this has been going on from time immemorial, and if I have time, I will go back to that, the time immemorial part. But because of the study, they've recommended that women have a specialist support during menopause. They have person-centered care and specialist intervention for those who are experiencing domestic violence. Mary Martin commented, menopause is something that is rarely talked about. I'm glad you made the effort to bring this to a wider audience. Thank you, Mary. It's a very difficult subject because nobody wants to talk about it. It scares. I don't understand why people don't want to talk about it. If you can talk about menstruation, you can talk about menopause. It's the other end of menstruation. What is so difficult about it? But I don't think it's the difficulty with the words exactly. I think it's the fact that it's women's issues, and women don't control the finances any part in the world, and women's issues don't count. That's what I think. Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You can. I'll stand corrected very nicely. Thank you very much. So a few more statistics they found that in 2017, in the UK, there were like 13 million women going through menopause at that time. They were either in menopause or in perimenopause. There's not too much of a difference between the symptoms, except that you don't have a period. You're in perimenopause, you'll have a period, or you have spotting, or you have irregular periods. So menopause is the complete cessation of your periods completely, but you have the same symptoms, okay? Therefore, in the national statistics in the United States, in the United Kingdom in 2020, just 2 years ago, demonstrated that 4 out of 10, or 39% of women killed by partners, are between 36 and 55. And I think if you check, I haven't checked that, but maybe you can check. I think that's when most divorces occur. I'm just thinking that, yeah. And I'm thinking that based on my own experience, seeing that, I almost went down that road during that particular age bracket. So let's hear from some of the women who were in that study and some of their experiences, what they thought about, what they think about this. What they were reporting was that one woman says, I was crying too much. Men should be more patient and show their love to their partners, especially during this period. But my point is, how can a man do that when the man doesn't know himself? He doesn't understand what his partner is going through. So he can't be kind, and he can't be loving and accepting of the woman, because the man himself does not know. So I think it's up to the woman now to learn about it through my book. Yes, get it for your spouse, to teach them about menopause and what they can expect, and actually what your needs will be during that time, because your needs will change based on the changes in your bodily functions and the changes in your mental and physical and spiritual self. Your needs are going to change, and this man should know. And another woman said, men don't understand you. They don't understand that we are women are suppressing their feelings. Well, I don't know about suppressing your feelings, but I know that you have different kinds of feelings that you don't understand. Okay. Another woman says, I have to say, I didn't remember I'm going through menopause. I was just completely and actually mentally shut away due to trauma. Now, I don't know what specific trauma she is, but trauma is trauma. And if she's having domestic violence issues within her home, then that is going to magnify the menopause symptoms, because trauma works in that way. It makes you feel worse than it makes you feel worse, whatever it is that you're experiencing, just like a pile-on. And the study also bore out my point that neither the male or female doctors pay any attention to menopause whatsoever. In short, there is no support for women. But let's go back to the first point. Men don't understand. And my point is, how are they supposed to understand what they don't know? You can't expect a man to understand what he doesn't know. And the whole society supports men. Even biblically, I don't know if anyone remembers the story about David, King David, when he was old. And he wasn't really that old. He was only like 70 years old. And the Bible says he had slaves, women or housekeepers or whatever you call them, slaves or helpers in the house. And he asks for one of the younger women to be brought into his bed to keep him warm because he was cold. Now, I can understand the coldness because my husband is cold. He is so cold. We had to separate our bedrooms because I was hot, man. I was so hot all the time, and he was cold as ice. So he still is cold. And so what happens is that we separated bedrooms, and it actually helped our relationships because I could be I could open the window even during winter, and I could be cold and enjoy my cold, and he could have his electric blanket and whatever it is that he used, and a ton more blankets and towels and everything to keep himself warm. That's fine. So it brought peace to our relationship, and our relationship improved after that. But that's a segue. Let me tell you about what David did. David got a young person in his room, in his bed, to warm him up. And the scriptures actually even say that you can look the story up here for yourself, and look it up, and tell me if I'm wrong, right or wrong. Send me a message. But he said that they brought a young woman into the bed to warm him up. This time, David has like 3 or 4 wives already, including Bathsheba, which by now is probably menopause. Do you remember who Bathsheba is? Bathsheba is the woman who David killed. He's killed his her husband, sent her to the front of the line so that he could have this woman, and she was now his wife, and she was there available, but she was menopausal, so she was not, basically of no use to him. So he brought this maid, who was a young maid, into his bed to actually warm him up according to the scriptures, except that the scripture says that they did not have any relationships. And I'm thinking, how does that supposed to make me feel better? How is that supposed to make the wives feel better? That time he had like maybe 4 wives. How are they supposed to feel better? They're discarded in favor of this young woman. But why? Because that's how our world is set up. Our world is set up that values the feelings of men above the feelings of women. And this is the basis of domestic violence. Okay? The man does not consciously realize that's what he's doing, but this is the base of domestic violence. Now, women also become violent in relationships. I'm not saying that they're only men that cause violence against their wives. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that there's more, 58% or 39% of women killed by partners are between the ages of 36 and 35. Okay, Jeff Lee, come in. Menopause. Jeff Lee, I'm going to read it. Menopause, I heard, changes someone's mental state and outlook in life. The human body is truly a mystery. Well, Jeff, thank you so much for this comment. It does change. You know why it changes? Why it changes is in my book. I'm not going to tell you, because if I tell you, you won't read a book. But I agree with you. It changes your mental state. And it changes, and this one of the reasons why the book covers the physical, mental, and spiritual self, bringing all of you together as one coherent whole. Because if you're not functioning as one coherent whole, then you are crazy. And actually, I use the word crazy lightly, but some women, I felt that I was crazy. I did. I felt like I was crazy. But the thing is about it, you have all these doctors, Jeff, that are supposed to be able to help you figure out why you feel crazy. And they don't help you. Nobody helps you. And the studies that I'm quoting here say that the doctors, including female doctors, do not go there with their clients, with their female clients. And the males don't understand either. So how are we supposed to move ahead? But anyways, let me just talk about the story where David took a woman, a young woman, into his bed to keep him warm when he was cold. Okay. By this time, his testosterone level is decreasing. He is in his andropause phase, I'm suppose. So he got really, really cold. And he brought this woman, and this time he had wives. He had like 3 or 4 wives that could have come into his bed and warmed him up because they were hot. That's the thing. I don't understand it. It's a fascinating story. And then the scriptures actually say that they didn't have any relationships. But can you imagine what happened under those blankets with David? I'm just saying because I have inquiring minds want to know. And I am, hey, I'm here for it. But here he is with this young woman in his bed, discarding his wives, okay? There's nowhere else in the scriptures that you ever read that any other person, this is a man who is after God's own heart. And this is, recently a 50-year-old man in our area was in London, he was charged with rape. He raped a 13-year-old, and he only got 3 years. He raped a 13-year-old girl. So how can you rape a 13-year-old girl and only get 3 years? Huh? Someone said, shall remain nameless, that men have this are endowed with this humongous sexual appetite. And because they are thus endowed, they think that they own women. They own women, and they should just go ahead and do what it is that they want to do. Yet the woman is only allowed, in quotation marks, to have one man or one husband. So there's definitely a double standard. There's always, I'm sure you know that there are double standards. The point is to admit that there are admit that there are double standards. There's not no equality between the sexes. That's a farce. It doesn't happen. But I personally don't believe that we were created that way. I think we were created as equal beings, and one of the reasons why is that another reason why you have women that have absolutely no rights. There are countries in the world where women can't even learn to read. Can you imagine that? Can you actually imagine women are not allowed to learn? That's the kind of world that we live in. And these are the things that even unconsciously you don't know, but you're not in that environment, but you read the news and you listen to people talk, and you have people absorbing the negativeness or the negativity from the news and the atmosphere, and then bringing it into the home and acting it out on their spouse. When a woman is in menopause, her whole body changes. Her entire being, not just her body, her sense of self changes. And she is dependent. Jeanette, thank you. We are a society obsessed with youth, but it's not set in stone. It can change. It has to change. And talk about menopause. And talking about menopause, womanhood, and more are the first steps. But Jeanette, I don't know. I feel like saying too little, too late, because even now, even with this book here, people are not interested in the knowledge that it brings. I don't know what it is. I just don't know why they don't want to know. But generally speaking, the women don't want to know either, and the men don't want to know. Sometimes more men want to know more than women. Some men that actually, I have found that men who actually are in love with their wives still want to know about menopause, want to know what is going on. But men usually, a lot of men, not all men, but a lot of men tend to after their wives or partners reach menopause, they tend to gravitate to younger women like David. And you'll see it all the time. You hear it all the time. All these old grandfathers and stuff marrying younger, and they just don't want to deal with a woman their age or their equal, because there is just there's this hormone. The sex hormone is so overpowering in young women, and the men go after it just like a dog goes after another dog. That's it. It's all about the sex hormone. Men with their overpowering sexual desire, even when they have issues in the bedroom themselves, the desire doesn't fade. Okay. So it's something for us women to know. And those are the things that cause so much disquiet in marriages, and domestic violence in the home, because the wife has now lost her sexuality, and the man is seeking satisfaction elsewhere. But I believe if the men understood it, what do you enjoy most about the process of writing and being an author? Betty, thank you for this question. I like the storytelling. And it is wonderful. I used to read fiction when I was younger, but I don't longer read fiction. I don't need fiction because, every day you're alive, and let's say every day you're alive, and I have to do the math to figure the number of days that I have been alive. But every day that you have been alive is a story. Can you imagine how many stories there are in the world if we looked at life like that? Can you? Can you actually imagine how many stories? So you can take your own story, and this beautiful is my story. And you can combine it with the facts out there, the science, okay? Because no man or woman is an island. You are not out there alone. You are your environment, and your environment is you. So therefore, whatever is going on in science, you are part of it, or you are it. And therefore, this is what I did. I combined it with the knowledge that I learned. Domestic violence, for one. I did domestic violence in the university. I studied domestic violence. And the interesting thing about this, the domestic violence that I studied in college, they did not draw. Can you believe it? Could you believe it? I just went to college the other day. I went to college late after my kids grew up. They did not draw the correlation between domestic violence and menopause. And yet, 49% or 39% of women, 4 out of 10 people, the national statistics in the United Kingdom found that most of the women that were killed by their partners were between the age of 36 and 55. So even though I went to college, my own, yes, I will answer your question, Sarah, just a minute. I'll finish this sentence. My own experience did not actually bring in the relation, the teachers didn't know. I don't think they knew, because they would have told us. They didn't know the correlation between domestic violence and menopause. Do you feel that menopause was a significant change in your life? Do I feel? I am absolutely sure, Sarah, that it made me, I turned into a completely different human being. I cannot begin to stress sufficiently how much it changed me as a completely different human being. to myself. On the outside, I was the same to everybody, but on the inside, I was completely different. You know that during menopause, or after you've reached menopause, you are existing without two significant Kenneth. My grandson is Kenneth. So welcome, Kenneth. Asks, when you had your menopause, how did you feel? That's a good question. It's in my book. Kenneth, you gotta get a copy of my book. But I'll give you a hint. I felt an out-of-body experience because I felt there was this person that I did not know. Yesterday, I knew me. Yesterday, I was great, having a great time going to work, enjoying my family, and just loving life and loving living and everything, and be bopping around and everything. And tomorrow, or today, yesterday and today, I just woke up and I was like, I felt like a different human being. I was not the same person, and I have not been the same person since. And this is why I wrote the book. I have not been the same person because I'm missing two significant and life-changing hormones in my body, and that is estrogen and progesterone. Those two hormones are just off the wall great. They are just the most wonderful, beautiful, aesthetic, you can paint it, hormones that you can have. And this is why women look so beautiful, and when they're young and vibrant and just desirable. And then all of a sudden you've lost it. You lose it. You don't have it anymore. It takes about 10 years to actually go to the last drop of hormones. But you know what? After it's gone down to 50%, you start feeling the effects, and you are just a different human being. Okay. Now, I can tell you that it doesn't happen to all women. Okay. Some women don't feel the effects, but Western women feel more of the effects. I don't know why. And this is another area for research. But I can guess. Because the Western lifestyle is different from the Eastern lifestyle, and our food is different. What we eat in the West is so much different from what the people like in the East eat, and so that has a tremendous effect. Okay, and like people from Greece, for example, and Morocco, and those ladies from those areas. I'm not saying that they don't experience these symptoms, but their diets contain a lot more vegetables and a lot more substances that perhaps carry more hormones. So those, for example, soybeans, for example. Soybeans is really filled with estrogen. As a matter of fact, it is not recommended that you feed your children, your baby boy. If you have a baby boy, don't feed them soy milk because it has increased levels of estrogen. Now, a lot of Eastern people do include soybeans a lot in their diet. So I don't know if that makes a difference. I don't know. I'd have to do the study. You would have to do the study to actually come to a reasonable conclusion. But there are so many women who are having difficulties, with strokes and things like that. Betty asks, what other genres are you interested in exploring in your future work? Well, that's a good question, Betty. Thank you for asking that. I wrote a book about my grandbaby. I have a grandbaby. This is it. It's called The Impossible Farm, and this book is dedicated to my grandbaby, Kenneth. And this is a book that teaches him how to get along, because he's 5 and the baby is 6 months now, I think. Yeah. So he has to be the leader and show his family, show his sister how to get along in the world. So, question from Tracy. Do you have any advice for aspiring authors who dream of publishing their own books? Tracy, the only thing I can say is that you got to read a lot. Just keep reading, and write. I've been writing since primary school. Now, actually, my sister says she doesn't understand how I never became a journalist or something, because I was such a good writer when I was young. But that's because I read a lot and read anything and everything and start writing and using your imagination when you're writing. I have quite a few poetry, and you don't have to write fiction. You can write, nonfiction. You can also write fiction. And that depends on your imagination. So, because there's so many things in the environment for you to write about. Was asked, hi Mabel, do you have any advice for aspiring authors who dream of publishing? Oh yes, that's your question. Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, so Evelyn says, regardless if you've had your menopause or not, all women are beautiful. Well, I agree with you, Evelyn, 100%. But this book is not about beautiful. I'm glad you brought that up. It's not about being beautiful on the outside. Beautiful, as you use it in your question, Beautiful, is an adjective. Okay? This is a noun. Beautiful, being full of beauty. It's a substance that you can possess during menopause, because the people close to you are telling you that you're no longer desirable. You're no longer beautiful, Beautiful. But what this book tells you is that you can be full of beauty in your own right, regardless of what the world thinks. Sorry. So that's what this book is about. And Justin says, sadly, there are still elements within society that think it's okay to violate women if it's within one's marriage. Well, Justin, I am so glad to welcome you to this. I shouldn't call this interaction, this interactive session. Yes, it is true, Justin, unfortunately. But you can make a difference. You can make a difference. You can tell your friends, you can tell your neighbors, you can write a book, you can proclaim it everywhere that you work, that it is not okay to violate women, and a woman's body does not belong to a man. A woman's body belongs to her. All of her belongs to herself. Because I went to church I hope my pastor is going to see this. And he said that I gave him one of my books, and he said that the woman belongs to the man and the man belongs to the woman. So if we can extrapolate on that, it means that the man can do whatever he wants with the woman, and the woman, because that's how we think. We're human beings, okay? And vice versa. But That is not true. That is not. We are unique individuals, unique human beings. And just because you're married to somebody or not, or just living with them or whatever the situation is, that doesn't mean that you have control over his body, or she has control over the other. He has control over her body and she has control over his body. I don't agree with that. It is a mutual it's a mutual act of will. Two persons join together willingly, nobody forcing the other body. If you say the woman's body belongs to the man, then the man has the right. He's more powerful, he's stronger, he's physically stronger than the woman. So even and you know, he's going to feel that. I know how men think. I have several men in my family. It's mine, I'm going to take it, blah blah blah. I'm going to, you know, and I'm going to, and this is mine. You belong to me. You belong to me. And that's a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe for domestic violence. And that, even if there is no touching, with that kind of attitude, is emotional abuse and it's violence. Okay? And that needs to stop. That needs to stop. We need to act as if we are created beings with reason and intelligence and respect. You know, we're not animals. Even animals, dogs have respect, you know, for other dogs. We shouldn't do that. Okay? Sorry about that. I guess on my pulpit. So, do you have any other questions? So, in the research that we're talking about, domestic violence and menopause, what was recommended in the research was that women going through menopause should get specialist support. Have you ever seen a doctor who specializes in menopause? I've never seen one. I think you can find doctors. I've never seen a doctor that specializes in menopause, and I'm not saying that they don't have them, but I've never seen one. I've never heard of one, and I've been a nurse for 100 years, so that might be a new specialty. Okay, and even our therapists. Our therapists. I'm not a therapist or social worker, but they don't connect the dots. They have not connected the dots between domestic violence and menopause. Okay. And when they do, like 4 out of 10 women are killed by their partners are between the ages of 36 and 55, then somebody needs to actually connect the dots. Some of these therapists and social workers need to connect the dots. They are not trained in school. They're not trained in universities. They are not prepared sufficiently to connect the dots to help the woman and the man, because I'm not saying a man or, you know, this relationship is irredeemable if violence ensues. I'm not saying it's irredeemable, but what I'm saying is it takes specialists to actually figure it out. Okay, so my 30 minutes are up. So thank you very much for coming to this, and please come with more questions. Thank you so much for your questions. I really enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye.